Philip Yoon is Executive Director of the Ploughshares Fund, a former advisor on North Korea during the President Clinton administration. Philip, thanks for being with us. What is striking about this incredible amount of detail, the attention to all the specifics here, from the colour of the carpet at the Peace House, it's a blue colour to represent a new beginning, to the shape of the negotiation table, which is oval, not rectangular, with the Washington Post reporting this. Inside the newly renovated Peace House building, they will sit exactly 2,018 millimetres apart, highlighting the historic 2018 Inter-Korean Summit, the South Korean Presidential Blue House said. How important is all of this stuff?
Well, I mean, it represents a lot of hard work. We know that both South Korean representatives and North Korean representatives have been working around the clock to make this happen. And there are so many details related to this, both in terms of appearance, but also the substance of the negotiations. There are high stakes here. As was said earlier, this whole thing revolves around what denuclearization is going to mean if the United States is really going to play in this. And so they've got to get something related to that. I think it's really important is the next step. And I think we've got to make sure, among other things, that the summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un actually happens. If it doesn't, that's going to be a huge blow all the way around. So there's a lot to be done, and we're all really interested to see what's going to happen. I think it's going to be quite interesting and probably some surprises.
Yeah, and it'll be broadcast live on television, which is also a first, so very symbolic as well. The last failed summit was more than a decade ago. The South Korean president was involved in those talks and the preparation. He was also involved in the talks and the summit before that, which also failed. If nothing else, he knows what worked, I guess, and more importantly, what did not work. And he's had a long time to think about it.
Yeah, I think there was a really good point that what's different about this summit and prior ones is that the prior summits were actually done relatively late in the term of the South Korean president. And so therefore, there's only one 5-year term. So if you wait too long, you become a lame duck. Moon Jae-in has done this very early in his term. And so there is some leeway that he is going to have. And I was with Madeleine Albright when she was there in 2000. And I think it's absolutely right. The North Koreans miscalculated to a certain degree. They took a while to respond to the U.S. and South Korean overtures, and time did eventually run out. And so I think that's something that they learned as well, and that's why perhaps Kim Jong-un is more open to moving on this a little bit faster.
I want to read part of an op-ed from Nicholas Eberstadt from the American Enterprise Institute. He argues North Korea really has no interest in a peace agreement with Seoul. For North Korea to end its war on the South and accept the South as a legitimate co-equal government on the peninsula would mean abandoning the quest that has legitimized the Kim family's rule for 3 generations. The decision would call into question why exactly North Korea should hold power at all. It would be a system threatening a mistake on the scale of a string of blunders like the President Mikhail Gorbachev that doomed the Soviet Union. Does he have a point?
Well, I disagree pretty strongly with that assessment. The point is that we really don't know what the North Koreans want and what they're willing to do. I think that what we have here is, we're talking about legal issues here. If there's political will to move forward, all these legal issues will step aside. And so if we want legal issues to be an impediment, yes, they will be. But I do think that if there is a political will to move forward, this is something that I don't think is going to be a problem at all.
We're almost out of time, so last question. Is it a concern human rights are not on the agenda?
Yeah, I think so. I think that human rights is sort of a wild card here. The Trump administration hasn't made a big priority on that, but I do think that as things start to move forward in a way related to these other issues, that people here in the United States are going to raise these issues along with South Korea. And so I think this is something that both sides have to plan for. And if I were them, I'd start thinking about how to integrate that at the beginning of the process and not as an afterthought.
Philip, there are a few people who have your knowledge and experience, so it's great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.